Hello, I'm Alyn Williams from Alyn Williams at the Westbury. I've got my frying pan on. This is a little bit of beef fat, beef dripping. Have my rump cap there. I'm just going to rub a little bit of salt into the fat. I'm going to put that in the pan. Turn it down a little bit. All I want to do now is just bring out as much of the beef fat out of the fat and crisp up the outside of that, so that I'm rendering most of the fat in there, so that what you're eating is a nice crispy piece of fat on the outside rather than a blubbery piece of fat. I season it quite well. I mean, it looks like a lot of salt, but when you're cooking in this much oil and fat, most of that seasoning will wash off anyway, and you'll end up with it left off in the residual fat in the pan afterwards. So most of that salt won't stay on the beef. It will season it, it will flavour it, but then it will come off anyway. You can see now how much fat is coming off of that beef already. There was only a dribble in there. I put about half a teaspoon in the pan in the first place, and all that's coming off. But I'm just going to drain that, and that will keep going again, and it will render and render until all of that fat is off. I'm going to then turn it over, and I'm going to put a little bit more back in, and I'm going to baste the meat. You can see how lovely and coloured that's getting, and you see the depth of those scores are getting less and less because the fat is coming out, and so the fat that's in there is reducing. And I keep that going for about 8 minutes, just like that. Get as much of that out as possible. So now I'll turn it over. You've got that lovely crispy fat on that side. So I'm just basting the meat now, just to get the heat all around the beef. I'm going to pop it in an oven, but it's going to be quite a slow oven. So I'm going to now take that out of the pan, put it into my roasting pan. Got those lovely cooking juices. Look at the colour of that, it's delicious. I'm going to cook that for 10 minutes on 120 degrees. I'm just going to let that rest now, so I'll let it rest for another 10 to 15 minutes. Really, the most important part, I think, is the resting process, because if you don't let it rest, everything else that you've done goes in vain. Because if you carve it before it's rested properly, you're going to end up with a dry piece of meat. You've got all the juices will be in the middle, and they'll just leach out as you carve it. So very, very important to be patient. I know everybody wants to carve into it and taste the meat as it comes out of the oven, but just be a little patient. Okay, so you can see the meat is really beautifully cooked. It's lovely and pink. We've got those small grains of meat, as I was saying. If I was to cut it this way, you see the grains of the meat, the fibres of the meat are long, whereas on this one the fibres of the meat are short, and that is massively important to cut against the grain of the meat. Take one more nice slice off. So there you've got a beautifully cooked rump cap, which is cooked in the pan and then just very gently in the oven.